Okay. Are you all comfortably seated? Wow, this is a really great turnout. This is really heartwarming for our family to know that so many people, thought so highly of René. And of course that those people that showed up with the Harleys, that was just really phenomenal. Thank you all for coming. So my name is Bill Meyer. I'm René's oldest brother. My brother René was born at the beginning of spring in 1953. His mother was very religious and named him after René Goupil, who was a French missionary who was sent to New France. He is one of the Canadian martyrs. He was the fifth of 12 children. We called him sibling number 5 when we forgot his name. He had 8 brothers and 3 sisters. When he was 8 months old, the whole family moved to Canada. Did I mention we were born in Holland? First they went to Victoria and then to Vancouver, and then they eventually settled down in Ladner, and that's where René spent most of his life. He attended Sacred Heart Catholic School. My sister Rose told me that she and René went to Sacred Heart School together at one point. When she started school, René was in grade 6. And she says he was a big brother to her. He looked after her. They would take the school bus, and there'd be no seats. And when the bus was crowded, René would say in a loud voice, "My sister is standing." And somebody would get up and give her their seat. So Rose never had to stand on the bus. When he graduated from Sacred Heart, he went to Delta Secondary. He was very smart in school, and he really excelled in shop. It was in high school that he developed a skill for working with wood and metal. He loved tools and making things. I remember we always had ashtrays that he'd hammered out of some metal, but the real highlight was a speedboat that he made in woodworking class. This is a really beautiful piece of work. It had the sponsons on it. It looked really fast. I don't know if it ever raced or not, but it looked great. René quit high school before graduating to go to work. Like his siblings, René learned the bakery trade in his dad's bakery. He also worked for a time at the White Spot. His best friend Afe said it was he that got René out of the bakery and into his first carpentry job. He helped his brother-in-law Kerry Conrad build a house in Topley, BC. He saved Kerry all kinds of money finding scrap lumber in the dump. He also built a couch from lumber that he found in the dump. My sister Rose said that it was really comfortable couch because of the way it was slanted. He had a real way of making furniture that was not only aesthetically pure but also very functional. He was extremely handy with an eclectic array of talents. He could build houses or picnic tables. He could make knives out of leaf springs and throwing stars from chainsaw blades. He could customize a Harley or fix a leaky radiator. He was a good shot, and he could accurately throw an axe or a knife. If you were stuck on an island, René would be the guy you'd want to be with. He can work with metals and wood, he can make tools, he can make shelters, he can make furniture, and he can kill you something to eat. As a carpenter, he did beautiful work. He enjoyed the work. He enjoyed working with his son-in-law, Darren. The crew also liked René. They had a nickname for him. They called him the Pirate Ninja. So when he was 21, he married Anne Hartwick. They had 4 great kids and had 6 grandchildren. He was always witty and cracking jokes. He adored his kids and his grandchildren, and they adored him too. They always remained a close family. He would often sing when he worked. Nicky said, yeah, he would garble the words though. Nicky said that when she started school, it was the first time that she learned it didn't go, Mary had a little lamb, slice of cheese, slice of ham. And he also came out with other funny one-liners like, I used to be a werewolf, but I'm all right now. Ahoo! René was a colorful character in his tastes and his attire and his lifestyle. He embraced a culture of guns and motorcycles and beer. He read every Louis L'Amour book. He read every Louis L'Amour novel ever written, and he watched every cowboy western that ever was. My brother Marty thinks that he gravitated towards carpentry so he could strap on a tool belt. It was just like a gun belt, and he could shoot stuff with a nail gun. He loved guns, and he had a good collection of them. Our dad used to say he had enough guns to make even an Irishman jealous. He was the epitome of the cowboy outlaw stereotype. He had an outlaw penchant for flaunting authority. He was resourceful and independent, and he could make anything, even his own tools. Paul told me about a story about René's caring nature. He ran into him at the Boundary Bay Air Show. René lived close to the Boundary Bay Airport at that time. And he had walked over, so Paul offered him a ride home. It was a bit of a walk, and it was hot, and Paul had an air-conditioned truck. So René accepted. However, there's a real traffic jam, and after half an hour, the truck had only moved a block, and René was grumbling that if he'd walked, he'd be home by now. Then he got a bright idea. Hey, why don't I jump out and grab a few beers? I'll be right back. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, he reappeared with a couple of cold beers and rejoined the traffic jam. And that's just an example of his caring nature. He made that weight all the more bearable. Being part of a large family, there was often someone moving, and René would always offer a hand. My sister Anna remembers that René helped her when she moved from 92nd Avenue. She was about to empty a large freezer so that it could be loaded, and René looked at it and said, let's just pick that sucker up. And they did, because they were real men. She also noted that when they were building the stairs for her house in Topley, René cut out the stringers for the stairs with a chainsaw. There's a picture of it, this is a true story, and it was just perfect. And Anna said that when her son Donnie was in a Christmas concert in grade 1, she wanted to take a photo. René told her to walk right up to the front, just block everyone's view and take the picture. Just walk up and be proud, he said, to hell with the others. My niece Julia said that when she was a teenager, René took her for a ride on his bike. It only had one seat, but he bundled up his Mac jacket and tied it down with bungee cords. And they ripped around the block a few times. She said that she was really disappointed that none of her friends could see how cool she looked. René had a place on Boundary Bay Airport Road, I can't remember what it's called, 72nd. And he loved that place. He had a shed and a shop where he could tinker. His house was filled with ingenious contraptions. He had a system of pulleys so that he could control the lights from his favorite seat on the couch. He had a system of magnets under the coffee table so that he could store his knives and tools there, because he liked to work at his coffee table. He had tools suspended from the ceiling with pulleys and counterweights so that he could use a tool, like his little mouse sander, then you give it a tap, and then it'd go back up to the ceiling. He helped Rose renovate Bakerview, that's her burial center. He taught Rose about shovels. Mostly shovels, they have a short handle up to armpit height. René called them Muni shovels because municipal workers use them to lean on when they're watching other people working. René modified his shovels with longer handles so they wouldn't hurt your back when you were working with them. He had an uncanny ability to modify tools so as to increase their ease of use and to make them more comfortable to work with. He taught Rose how to shoot a .303, not to hold it high on his shoulder so it wouldn't hurt you or knock you over. He taught her to fire a pistol. Rose despaired of ever hitting anything with it because it seemed so difficult, but René was a real patient teacher, and he helped her until she mastered the art of hitting a target. I had some adventures with René. In 1974, René and Rob and I went to Watson Lake in Rob's Land Rover. René packed along an arsenal just in case it was necessary to blip a few varmints. His friend Alf said for a guy that loves guns and knives so much, he was a real softie. He was a real caring sort of guy. Nikki told me the story when she was a teenager. She had a pet hamster, and one day the hamster died, and Nikki was overcome with grief. She was totally devastated and inconsolable, and René saw how distraught she was. He gave her a hug, and then he disappeared into his shed. And he emerged a little while later, and he built a little coffin for the hamster, complete with a hinged lid. They lined the coffin with scraps of cloth and blades of grass, and laid the hamster in the coffin and closed the lid. And then René dug a hole in the backyard, and they placed the coffin in the hole. And then, to Nikki's utter astonishment, he took off his hat and he recited the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. And he recited that from memory. He had not just buried her hamster, but he'd also given the hamster a decent burial. I started collecting pictures of René about a month or so before he died, and it wasn't until I started assembling the pictures that I realized what a handsome and charismatic guy he really was. I talked to him a few weeks before, and I asked him if he was afraid of dying, and he said he wasn't. He was ready to go. He learned of the diagnosis only a week or so before, the beginning of June. It was Nikki who was told the news by his doctor, and she had to tell René. So she was thinking about what she was going to say. He said, "Give it to me straight." And so he told her, and he was thoughtful for a while, and he said, "I thought I'd have a little bit more time than that." From there they had to go to the doctor, had to talk to the doctor, and the doctor laid out in the prognosis in stark and simple terms. He said, "Tell me when to stop." He warned them. And they didn't stop him, and then when he finished talking, they left the room. And René turned to Nikki and he said, "What do you think?" And Nikki says, "I think it's time to get rip-roaring drunk." They both laughed and joked, and when the nurse arrived, she was pretty surprised to see them overcome with mirth after receiving such grim news. And that's the vision I have of him now, cracking a joke in the face of adversity and cracking a beer as he rides into the sunset. I'll remember him for being a cool, colorful, kind, and caring, but most of all, I'll remember him for making me laugh. Thank you.